The sun hung high in the sky, casting a warm, golden glow over the quiet suburban neighborhood of Maplewood. It was a perfect Saturday afternoon, the kind of day that seemed tailor-made for celebrations. In the backyard of the Martinez family, the air was filled with the scent of grilled burgers, the sweet aroma of freshly baked cake, and the sound of children's laughter. Today was a special day. It was Lucas Martinez's 7th birthday, and his father, Miguel, had gone all out to make it unforgettable. Miguel Martinez was a man who believed in the power of family and community. A single father, he had raised Lucas on his own since his wife passed away 3 years ago. Despite the challenges, Miguel had always made sure that Lucas felt loved and cherished. This birthday party was no exception. The backyard was adorned with colorful balloons, streamers, and a small bouncy castle that squeaked with every jump. A folding table covered with a red and white checkered tablecloth held trays of homemade food, grilled burgers, hot dogs, macaroni and cheese, and a massive chocolate cake shaped like a spaceship, Lucas's favorite. The guests, a mix of family, friends, and neighbors, mingled happily. Children chased each other around the yard, their laughter echoing through the air. Adults stood by the grill, sharing stories and enjoying the warm afternoon. Miguel, wearing a bright blue apron that said Grill Master, flipped burgers with a smile on his face. He couldn't have been happier. This was what life was all about, simple moments filled with love and joy. But just as Miguel leaned down to light the candles on Lucas's birthday cake, the harmony of the afternoon was shattered. "What the hell is going on here?" A sharp, angry voice cut through the air. Miguel turned to see a woman storming into his backyard. She was middle-aged, with bleach blonde hair pulled into a tight bun and a scowl that could curdle milk. Her name was Karen Whitaker, and she lived 2 houses down. Karen had a reputation in the neighborhood for being difficult. She was the kind of person who complained about everything. Kids playing too loudly, dogs barking, even the color of her neighbor's lawn furniture. Miguel recognized her immediately. He had heard stories from other neighbors about her constant complaints, but he had never had a direct run-in with her, until now. Karen planted herself in the middle of the yard, hands on her hips, glaring at the decorations and the joyful gathering as if they personally offended her. "This is ridiculous," she snapped, her eyes darting around in disgust. "I've been listening to this noise all afternoon. Some of us have lives, you know. Jobs. Responsibilities. We don't have time for this circus." Miguel exhaled slowly, keeping his voice calm. "Ma'am, this is my son's birthday party. We're not being loud, just having a good time." But Karen wasn't listening. She turned toward the children, who had stopped playing and were now staring at her in confusion and fear. "You need to stop this racket right now," she barked, her voice sharp enough to make Lucas clutch his father's leg. One of the other parents, a woman named Elena, stepped forward. "Excuse me, but you can't just barge into someone's yard like this." Karen turned on her, her face twisted with rage. "Oh, I can't. Maybe I should call the police and let them know what's going on here. A bunch of loud, rowdy people disturbing the peace. Do you even have a permit for this?" Miguel clenched his jaw. "I don't need a permit to celebrate my son's birthday in my own backyard." Karen let out a dramatic scoff, then pointed at the Bluetooth speaker playing soft music in the background. "That music is way too loud. I can hear it from my house." Elena glanced at the speaker, which was playing at a volume barely louder than a normal conversation. "That's a lie, and you know it. I don't have to explain myself to you." Karen spat. Then she whirled back to Miguel. "You need to shut this down right now, or I will be calling the police." Miguel stood tall, meeting her gaze without fear. "Go ahead." For a split second, Karen seemed surprised that he didn't immediately cave to her demands. But then her lips curled into a smirk. She pulled out her phone, her eyes burning with spite, and dialed 911. "Yes, officer, I'm in danger," she said, her voice trembling with false fear. "There's a huge gathering at my neighbor's house, completely out of control. They're being aggressive, and I'm afraid for my safety." The party guests exchanged looks of disbelief. Some had already pulled out their phones, recording the incident. Karen didn't care. She gave Miguel a smug look, as if she had already won. She had no idea what was coming next. Miguel remained calm, refusing to let Karen's aggression rattle him. "Ma'am, you are trespassing. I need you to leave my property." Karen let out a sharp laugh. her expression twisting into something even uglier. Oh, I see how it is. You people think you can just take over nice neighborhoods, bring in all your noise, your crime. Miguel's jaw tightened. He could feel the guests around him stiffening, their mood shifting from disbelief to anger. Elena, still recording, muttered, "Oh, this is about to get really bad for her." Karen's voice grew louder, more venomous. "This used to be a respectable neighborhood before your kind moved in. I bet you don't even own this house, do you? Probably some government handout. And now you're throwing a circus in the backyard like. She suddenly sneered, her lips curling as she spat out the word, "Animals." Gasps rippled through the party. The children didn't fully understand, but they could sense the tension. Lucas clutched his father's hand, his tiny fingers squeezing in fear. Miguel took a deep breath. He refused to let his son see him lose control over someone like Karen. "I need you to leave now," he said again, his voice unwavering. But Karen was too far gone. "Oh, you're threatening me now?" she shrieked. "Big, scary animal thinks he can intimidate me on my own street. You know what? I'm done talking. I'm calling the police." She lifted her phone to her ear, turning on the performance of a lifetime. Her voice instantly changed, shifting from aggressive to panicked, trembling with false fear. "Hello? Yes, this is Karen Whitaker. I need officers immediately. There's a huge gang in my neighbor's backyard. They're screaming, being violent. I'm scared for my life." A few guests chuckled in disbelief. The only screaming was coming from her. The only person being aggressive was her. Miguel turned to Elena, who was still filming. "Make sure you get all of this." Elena smirked. "Already ahead of you." Meanwhile, Karen continued her call, her voice dripping with fabricated fear. "I tried to ask them nicely, but they got hostile. I think they might be dangerous." She shot Miguel a smug look, as if expecting him to beg her to stop. Instead, he just folded his arms. Because the truth was, he wanted the police to come. This was about to backfire spectacularly. 15 minutes later, 2 police cars pulled up in front of Miguel's house, their lights flashing but sirens silent. The party had gone quiet, the mood tense but controlled. The children had been ushered inside, away from the unfolding drama. Karen stood front and center, arms crossed, a smug expression on her face as she watched the officers step out of their vehicles. "Thank God you're here," she sighed dramatically, walking toward them as if they were her personal security detail. "I've been terrorized for over an hour. It's out of control." The officers exchanged glances, already skeptical. "Can you explain what's going on, ma'am?" one of them asked. "Yes, this." She gestured wildly at Miguel and the guests. "This unlawful gathering. They're being aggressive, blasting music, screaming." Miguel calmly stepped forward, his hands in his pockets. "Officers, thank you for coming. This woman trespassed onto my property, insulted my guests, and then called you with a completely false report." Karen's head snapped toward him. "Liar. They're intimidating me. I feared for my safety." Miguel waved a hand toward Elena and the others. "We have it all on video." The officer frowned. "You do?" Elena stepped up, her phone still recording. Every single second. One of the officers took the phone and began watching. His eyes narrowed as he listened to Karen's shrill voice on the recording, her racist insults crystal clear. Karen, realizing things were slipping out of her control, panicked. "Why are you watching that? I'm the victim. You need to do something about them." The officer looked up from the video and said, "Ma'am, we don't see anything illegal happening here. What we do see is you trespassing and harassing these people." Karen's jaw dropped. "Are you serious? I called you. They should be arrested." The second officer folded his arms. "For what exactly? Having a birthday party?" Karen was losing it. Her face turned red, her hands clenched into fists. She turned back to Miguel, her voice filled with rage. "This isn't over. She barely got the words out before she whipped back toward the officers. "I pay your salaries. You're supposed to protect me. These people don't even belong here." The officers exchanged another glance. The first one said, "Ma'am, I'm going to ask you one last time. Did you or did you not enter this man's backyard without permission?" Karen hesitated for half a second. "Well, I mean, yes, but only because That's trespassing," the officer said flatly. Karen's smugness evaporated. "What? No. I was just." "And you falsely reported a crime." the second officer added. That's also illegal. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. But I... The first officer pulled out his cuffs. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to turn around. The party guests gasped in satisfaction. A few even clapped. Karen, however, shrieked, No, you can't do this to me. She backed away, but the officers were already moving in. And then, in one final, glorious act of self-destruction, she made the biggest mistake of all. She raised a hand and swung at one of the officers. Before she even realized what had happened, she was tackled to the ground, her arms yanked behind her back. The officer she had tried to hit didn't even flinch as he clicked the handcuffs around her wrists. You're under arrest for trespassing, filing a false report, and assaulting an officer, he said, completely unfazed by her wails of protest. As they hauled her to her feet, Karen's eyes darted around, searching for sympathy. But there was none, only a crowd of people recording her downfall, ensuring that the entire world would see exactly what had happened. Miguel watched the officers escort her off his property, then turned back to Elena, who was still recording. Elena grinned. Oh, you bet I am. By the time Karen was booked at the station, her tantrum had already become an internet sensation. The videos spread like wildfire, appearing on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok under titles like Karen calls cops on Latino family, instantly regrets it, and Karen versus cops, the meltdown of the century. The footage of her screaming, flailing, and ultimately getting arrested became meme-worthy content overnight. Even news outlets picked up the story, framing it as yet another example of racial bias and entitlement. As for Miguel, he had no interest in the internet circus. He was just relieved that the nightmare was over. The day after the incident, neighbors began stopping by his house, expressing their support. Many apologized, saying they had no idea Karen had been like that. Some even admitted they had their own uncomfortable run-ins with her before, but had never spoken up. One elderly woman, Mrs. Garcia, patted Miguel's hand with a kind smile. We don't want people like her here. We're glad you and your family are part of this community. For the first time since moving in, Miguel truly felt that. Days later, Karen's charges were made public: trespassing, disorderly conduct, and assaulting an officer. Her employers, seeing the viral footage, quickly distanced themselves, and rumors spread that she had been fired. Meanwhile, Lucas's birthday party became legendary in the neighborhood. Parents who had been hesitant to let their kids mingle with new families now openly embraced Miguel and his guests. The true victory, however, wasn't just Karen's downfall. It was in how the community came together afterward. That next weekend, Miguel's backyard was filled again, not just with family, but with neighbors. People he had barely spoken to before brought over food, drinks, and gifts for Lucas. The sound of laughter filled the air, louder than before. But no one complained this time, because this wasn't just a party anymore. It was a celebration of something bigger, a reminder that love and unity would always win over hate. The weeks following Karen's arrest were a whirlwind for Miguel and Lucas. The viral videos of Karen's meltdown had not only brought the Martinez family closer to their neighbors, but had also turned them into local celebrities of sorts. People in Maplewood now greeted Miguel with warm smiles and nods of respect, and Lucas became the talk of his school, with classmates asking him to recount the story of the crazy lady who tried to ruin his birthday. But Miguel wasn't one to bask in the spotlight. He was a humble man, more concerned with providing a stable and loving environment for his son than with fame. Still, he couldn't deny that the incident had changed things for the better. The neighborhood felt more like a community now, and for the first time since moving to Maplewood, Miguel felt like he truly belonged. One evening, as Miguel and Lucas sat on their porch enjoying the cool breeze, a familiar face approached. It was Elena, the woman who had recorded the entire confrontation with Karen. She carried a plate of homemade cookies and wore a wide smile. Hey, Miguel, she said, handing him the plate. I just wanted to drop these off. Thought you and Lucas might enjoy them. Miguel smiled warmly. Thanks, Elena. You didn't have to do that. It's the least I could do, she replied. You know, what you did that day, standing up to Karen like that, it inspired a lot of us. You showed us that we don't have to tolerate that kind of behavior in our neighborhood. Miguel nodded, feeling a sense of pride. I just did what I thought was right. Lucas's birthday was supposed to be a happy day, and I wasn't going to let anyone ruin that. Elena smiled. Well, you did more than that. You brought this neighborhood together. People are talking about organizing a block party next month. It's been years since we've had one, but everyone's excited now. We'd love for you and Lucas to be there. Miguel's eyes lit up. A block party? That sounds great. We'll definitely be there. As Elena walked away, Lucas looked up at his father. Dad, what's a block party? Miguel chuckled. It's when everyone in the neighborhood gets together to have fun. There's food, music, games. It's like a big celebration. Lucas's eyes widened with excitement. That sounds awesome. Can we bring the bouncy castle? Miguel laughed. We'll see, buddy. We'll see. The day of the block party arrived, and Maplewood was buzzing with excitement. The street was closed off to traffic, and tables lined the sidewalks, laden with dishes brought by neighbors. There was a grill sizzling with burgers and hot dogs, a DJ playing upbeat music, and even a small stage set up for karaoke. Miguel and Lucas arrived early, carrying a tray of Miguel's famous homemade empanadas. As they set the tray down on one of the tables, they were greeted by a chorus of friendly hellos. Mrs. Garcia, the elderly woman who had comforted Miguel after the incident, approached with a warm smile. Miguel, dear, I'm so glad you could make it, she said, patting his arm. And Lucas, you look so handsome today. Lucas grinned. Thanks, Mrs. Garcia. Are you going to sing karaoke? She laughed. Oh, I don't know about that. But maybe if someone convinces me. As the day went on, the sense of community was palpable. Children played games, adults chatted and laughed, and the DJ kept the energy high with a mix of old and new hits. Miguel found himself surrounded by neighbors who wanted to thank him for standing up to Karen and for bringing everyone together. At one point, Elena took the microphone and addressed the crowd. Hey, everyone. I just want to say a few words. As many of you know, we've had some challenges in this neighborhood recently. But because of one man's courage and determination, we've come together in a way we haven't in years. Miguel, would you come up here? Miguel, caught off guard, hesitated for a moment before making his way to the stage. The crowd erupted in applause as he took the microphone. I don't really know what to say, Miguel began, his voice trembling slightly. I just did what any parent would do, protect my son and stand up for what's right. But I'm so grateful for all of you. This neighborhood has become our home, and I'm proud to be a part of it. The crowd cheered, and Lucas ran up to the stage, hugging his father's leg. Miguel picked him up, holding him close as the applause continued. Just as the block party was winding down, a sleek black car pulled up to the edge of the street. The windows were tinted, and the engine purred ominously. A man in a sharp suit stepped out, his eyes scanning the crowd. He had an air of authority, but there was something unsettling about his presence. Miguel noticed him immediately and felt a knot form in his stomach. He set Lucas down and whispered, "Stay here, buddy." As Miguel approached the man, the crowd grew quiet, sensing that something was off. "Can I help you?" Miguel asked, his tone cautious. The man smirked. "Miguel Martinez, I presume?" "That's me. Who's asking?" The man reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. "My name is Victor Langston. I'm a lawyer representing Karen Whitaker." Miguel's heart sank. He took the card, glancing at it briefly before looking back at Victor. "What does she want?" Victor's smirk widened. "MS. Whitaker is suing you for defamation, emotional distress, and wrongful arrest. She claims that the videos posted online have ruined her reputation and caused her significant harm." The crowd murmured in disbelief. Elena stepped forward, her voice sharp. "That's ridiculous. She brought this on herself. We all saw what happened." Victor turned to her, his expression cold. "Be that as it may, my client is prepared to take this to court. Unless, of course, Mr. Martinez is willing to settle." Miguel clenched his fists, trying to keep his anger in check. "I'm not giving her a dime. She trespassed on my property, harassed my family, and assaulted a police officer. She's the one who should be paying for what she did." Victor's smirk faded, replaced by a steely glare. "Suit yourself. But I warn you, Mr. Martinez, this won't be easy. My client has resources, and she's not afraid to use them." With that, Victor turned on his heel and got back into his car, leaving Miguel and the rest of the neighborhood in stunned silence. The mood at the block party shifted dramatically after Victor's visit. The sense of unity that had been so strong just moments ago was now tinged with worry. Miguel knew that Karen's lawsuit was nothing more than a desperate attempt to regain control, but he also knew that fighting it would be costly, both financially and emotionally. As the party wound down, Elena approached Miguel. "We're not going to let her win, Miguel. We'll stand by you, no matter what." Miguel nodded, grateful for her support. "Thanks, Elena. But this is my fight. I don't want to drag anyone else into it." Elena shook her head. "This isn't just your fight. It's ours too. Karen tried to divide us, but she failed. We're stronger together, and we're not going to let her tear us apart." Miguel felt a surge of determination. He looked around at the faces of his neighbors, people who had once been strangers but were now like family. He knew that no matter what Karen threw at him, he wouldn't be facing it alone. As Miguel prepared for the legal battle ahead, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Karen's lawsuit was a new challenge, but it was one he was ready to face. With the support of his neighbors and the love of his son, Miguel knew that he could overcome anything. But as the days turned into weeks, new threats began to emerge. Threats that would test the strength of the community and the bonds they had formed. The fight for justice was far from over, and Miguel Martinez was determined to see it through to the end. The lawsuit Karen Whitaker filed against Miguel Martinez hung over Maplewood like a dark cloud. Victor Langston, her slick attorney, wasted no time bombarding Miguel with legal notices and threats. But Miguel wasn't alone. The neighborhood rallied behind him, organizing bake sales, car washes, and even a crowdfunding campaign to cover his legal fees. Elena, armed with her viral footage and a newfound passion for activism, became Miguel's fiercest advocate, coordinating with local news outlets to keep the story in the public eye. At the first court hearing, the courtroom was packed with neighbors wearing matching Team Martinez t-shirts. Karen, dressed in a stiff pantsuit, sat stiffly beside Victor, avoiding eye contact with everyone. When the judge reviewed the evidence, Elena's unedited video, police reports, and testimonies from officers who'd arrested Karen, her case unraveled. Victor's arguments crumbled under the weight of Karen's own venomous words caught on tape. "This lawsuit is frivolous," the judge declared, slamming her gavel. Case dismissed. The courtroom erupted in cheers. Karen stormed out, her face crimson, while Victor scrambled after her, muttering about appeals. But the victory was short-lived. Karen's life spiraled further. Her employer, a prestigious real estate firm, publicly cut ties with her after the trial, citing values misalignment. Former clients sued her for unprofessional behavior, unearthing years of hidden complaints. Broke and ostracized, she listed her Maplewood home and vanished overnight, leaving only a "for sale" sign and a legacy of bitterness. Meanwhile, the neighborhood breathed easier. At a town hall meeting, residents voted to establish a community watchdog group to address disputes peacefully, a direct response to Karen's tyranny. Mrs. Garcia, now Miguel's surrogate grandmother, joked, "We should have done this years ago." But peace in Maplewood didn't last. One chilly autumn evening, Miguel noticed strangers lingering near his house, men in dark hoodies taking photos of his property. When he confronted them, they sped off in a black SUV. Days later, a letter arrived. "You think you won? Think again. This isn't over." Elena traced the SUV's plates to a shell company linked to Victor Langston. "He's trying to intimidate you," she warned. Karen's gone, but her lawyers got a grudge. Miguel refused to back down. With Elena's help, he filed a restraining order against Victor and leaked the threats to the press. The story went viral. Bully lawyer Harris's single dad in wake of Karen Meltdown. Victor's firm, fearing backlash, suspended him pending an investigation. On the anniversary of the birthday party, Miguel hosted another gathering, this time a unity feast for the entire town. The backyard overflowed with laughter, twinkling lights, and a banner that read, "Hate lost. Love won." Even the mayor attended, praising Miguel's extraordinary community leadership. As the sun set, Lucas tugged Miguel's sleeve. "Dad, look." He pointed to the fence, where a shy woman lingered. It was Karen. Her blonde hair was streaked with gray, her posture defeated. She hesitated, then approached Miguel, eyes downcast. I wanted to apologize," she mumbled. "I lost everything. And you were right." Miguel studied her, his anger tempered by pity. This wasn't about winning. It was about respect. Karen nodded, tears welling. I'm sorry. Truly. She handed Lucas a small gift, a toy spaceship. Happy birthday, kid. Lucas, ever kind, whispered, thank you. Karen left quickly, disappearing into the night. Miguel watched her go, feeling no triumph, only relief. Years later, Maplewood thrived as a model of inclusivity. The Unity Feast became an annual tradition, growing bigger each year. Miguel, now a city councilman, championed policies to protect marginalized families. Lucas, a teenager with his father's resilience, led anti-bullying campaigns at school. Karen's old house was bought by a young immigrant family, their laughter echoing where hers once festered. Victor Langston, disbarred and disgraced, faded into obscurity. One evening, as Miguel and Lucas sat on their porch, a neighbor's child raced by, chasing fireflies. Lucas smiled. Remember when we thought Karen was the worst thing that could happen? Miguel ruffled his son's hair. Turns out she was the best thing. She brought us all together. And in that moment, under a sky streaked with gold and violet, Maplewood felt like exactly what it was, a home. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story on Store of Good Stories. If this story touched your heart or made you think, don't forget to hit like and share the video to spread this positive message to more people. And if this is your first time here, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of the meaningful stories we share every week. Your support is the biggest motivation for Store of Good Stories to keep bringing heartfelt and valuable stories to you. See you in the next video.